news,
Lobbyists are fed up with politicians accepting their money and then not coming through.
opinion,
When the automated police force orders you inside, that's just them doing their job.
remix.
Even lost my job partially due to the whole global warming issue. Increase in oil prices. This guy's scared.
This is Top Story with KLIXcast and Jill Skeen,
I've been a listener for about 20 years.
I'm talking to you makes me feel better.
where the news meets your opinion. Pick up the phone and talk about it. 736-0300. That's 736-0300. Now, here's the hosts of Top Story, KLIXcast and Jill Skeen.
Good morning and welcome to Top Story. 736-0300 is always the number to call. And welcome back, Jill.
Thank you, Kelly.
How did your thing go this morning on Rise and Shine?
It went well, and we talk about rise and shine, that's for sure. You never sleep well when you have to wake up early, but it went well. We went over healthy items for school lunches that you can choose. You know, I went through the grocery store. You find different products out there. Went to Rudy's, went to Fred Meyer, found different things you can pack lunches in. They have this cute thing at Rudy's, actually a couple that are, it's a carrot, and you take it off. It's plastic. You put your carrots in there, but then the top has just a separate container for dipping stuff. So you could put hummus or ranch dressing, whatever. And then they have one for an apple that you could put the bottom with, I don't know, anything you wanted.
Caramel.
Yeah. Or maybe, I don't know, almond butter. So anyway, it was fun. They're always great. And hopefully I gave people some good ideas on, healthy school lunches.
Yeah.
And why not?
Take carrots to school.
Well, and there's all sorts of different products. So, pita, they have little pita breads that you can put sandwiches in, but you can also cut those in wedges and make your own homemade pita chips.
So is pita bread better for you than regular bread?
Well, no, but you can, for kids, sometimes you want things to be more fun. You can stuff it with stuff, and it's whole wheat. So hopefully if you're eating white bread, whole wheat pita bread would be better. Plus, it's not as much bread. So it probably is healthier. But anyway, it was like different ideas. So it was fun. I had a good time with those guys. And
Good.
I'll post it on my website so you can get the same tips I said today.
Oh, sounds good.
Yes.
Well, hey, coming up, we're going to be talking to Steve Millington with the Twin Falls Republicans. At 9 o'clock, we've got Twin Falls County Prosecutor Grant Loebs.
So call in for all your free legal advice.
Yes, exactly.
How can you get out of that? I don't know.
We got an
conviction or something. I don't know.
I know. We got an update on the situation in Ferguson, Missouri. We have a cost on what you will pay to raise a child from 0 to 18. Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And it looks like Jerome County has declared an economic disaster after those rains. I don't think, we heard so much about the flooding of the houses and the backing up of the sewers and things like that. The mudslide, that's right. But very few of us heard very much about what happened with the main source of income in this area with agriculture. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of farmers out there who got hit hard by that few days of rain that we had.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much damage it could cause.
Yeah.
Read the damage.
Farmers, I think, know very well how much damage it could cause. But those who are not involved directly with agriculture sometimes don't have any idea. And the rain that we got, whenever we get precipitation around here, especially in the summertime during the growing season, it's always a two-edged sword, because for some crops it's perfect, and for other crops, as we've seen, it can be a disaster. It's the same with a warm summer or a cold summer. We have warm weather crops like corn and beans. And we have cool weather crops like wheat and peas and such. And when you have a hot summer, then the crops that like cooler weather don't do so well. When you have a cooler summer, then the crops that like hot weather don't do so well. And there are also crops that like a lot of water, and there are also crops that don't like quite as much water. But when you have hay that's in the windrow and you have barley and wheat that's ready to thrash, the heads can sprout if it gets too wet, and getting water on the hay turns it moldy.
It doesn't take it long to sprout then, does it?
Well, no, not really.
It was almost like within a week.
When it's as wet as it was, it kind of varies. It depends on how much it rains and over how long of a period. But that is not the first time that that's happened in this area, to have sprouted wheat and such. But especially when you're talking malt barley for the Coors barley that they sell for the Coors beer, I mean, that stuff is very touchy. If that isn't...
They don't think any of that might be...
I know.
So guess what? Your Coors beer is going to go up in price. But because where are they going to find it from? But they said more than 14,000 acres of barley and 20,000 acres of alfalfa were affected.
Yeah, and that's
just
Jerome County.
That's
just Jerome County.
That estimates range from 50 to 70% loss, and they did say the other crops that were affected were wheat, beans, and peas. So they're hoping emergency funds will be made available to
a lot of
producers.
A lot of peas would have thrashing peas would have been in the windrow, ready to thrash. And such, and beans, you can overwater them in the cooler weather, and it just, So anyway, there you go. That's kind of a rundown.
So I think they sent it to the state, and I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be, and I think when that happens, when one county is declared a disaster area, I think automatically any of the counties that border that are also declared the same.
Why would you think that?
Well, because that's the way the law works.
I thought maybe they would have to submit it separately.
I may stand corrected on this, but I know there are a lot of situations where when a county is considered a disaster for something like this, that any of the counties that border it are also considered that too, because it's like the rain. The rain didn't just hit
No,
Jerome
but maybe
County.
It didn't create as much damage. Maybe some parts rained harder. Some people said near the canyon it was raining way more than what those guys said at the airport. So, it can vary.
Yeah.
But did Twin Falls County declare it? I don't remember hearing
I don't
it.
know that they've asked for it
Economic disaster?
I don't know that they've asked for it.
I don't know. Well, that will be something to find out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Update in Ferguson, Missouri. At least 31 people were arrested in Ferguson after a peaceful protest devolved into another night of chaos, and many of those arrested came from as far away as New York and California, said Missouri State Highway Patrol Captain Ron Johnson early Tuesday. Johnson did not provide additional details, but his remark confirmed what many in Ferguson have been saying all along. The protesters, who have turned the nightly demonstrations into tense confrontations with heavily armed police officers, are not local residents. To be sure, the rowdy demonstrators were greatly outnumbered by fellow protesters trying to keep the gathering peaceful. Get out of the street, don't fight, some protesters bellowed on bullhorns. Protester Jarrell Barrage grabbed one of the bottle-hurling demonstrators and told him to stop. We don't need these antagonizers out here. We need people who can stand out here to the side and still let your word be known, Barrage told CNN. Many residents believe those causing trouble are from outside of Ferguson. We're not going to let outside provocateurs to come here. We can't allow this movement to be destroyed, said Malik Shabazz, national president of Black Lawyers for Justice. He wouldn't say who the provocateurs were. The situation remains so unstable that Ferguson Florissant School District has canceled classes for the rest of the week, and the Missouri National Guard has been called out by Governor Jay Nixon to guard police command posts. A grand jury could begin to hear testimony from witnesses and decide on whether to return an indictment in the case as early as Wednesday. In addition to that proceeding, the Justice Department has opened a civil rights investigation into Brown's death. There is a dangerous dynamic in the night. It allows a small number of agitators to hide in the crowd and then attempt to create chaos. And then we've heard more and more stories, more and more eyewitness reports coming out about this. It's kind of like a he said, she said now.
Well, some people have it on video, and they've had their phones confiscated. So people were watching this. So you probably have one that's actually what happened.
The officer who killed Brown says the teenager rushed at him full speed in the moments before the shooting, according to an account phoned into a St. Louis radio station and confirmed by a source with detailed knowledge of the investigation. According to the version on KFTK, phoned in by a woman who identified herself as Josie, the altercation on August 9th began after Officer Darren Wilson rolled down his window to tell Brown and a friend to stop walking in the street. When Wilson tried to get out of his cruiser, Brown first tried to push the officer back into the car, then punched him in the face and grabbed for his gun before breaking free after the gun went off once, the caller said. Wilson pursued Brown and his friend, ordering them to freeze, according to the account. When they turned around, Brown began taunting Wilson, saying he would not arrest them, then ran at the officer at full speed, the caller said. Wilson then began shooting. The final shot was to Brown's forehead, and the teenager fell 2 or 3 feet in front of Wilson, said the caller, who identified herself as the officer's friend. A source with detailed knowledge of the investigation later said that the caller's account is accurate and that it matches what Wilson has told investigators, but accounts of exactly what happened when Wilson stopped Brown vary widely.
Well, then I heard in an interview with a woman who watched it who said that when they were stopped, it looked like the officer was trying to pull Brown into his car, and he pulled away and started running, and the officer started firing at him, and she thought he grazed his arm, and he turned around with his hands up, and that's when the officer shot him multiple times. So we have differing opinions,
right.
and they have I've heard a few accounts like that. So I don't know.
It's gonna be not fun but it's my understanding that in the autopsy report, all of the shots were from the front.
Right, so he was running away, but then he turned after what the one woman said, and she was freaked out because she had just moved to that neighborhood a month earlier and was freaked out and was watching it. I saw her in an interview, and she had her phone confiscated, and she said that it looked like the officer was trying to pull him in, and he started to run away and then was shooting at him but didn't hit him, and then grazed his arm, and that's when Brown turned around with his hands up. And then the officer kept shooting.
Oh, I see. So when he was running away, he didn't hit him. When he turned around, that's when he hit him.
That's when he unloaded.
Well, I don't know, man.
She was freaked
hopefully they'll
out.
get to the bottom of this. Eric Holder's going to be there, the Attorney General, tomorrow, so he'll get it all figured out. Don't you worry.
Someone's got to. But you know what? If that's... Oh, my God. How distracting is Steve Millington? We're trying to do a show, and you just come in here. It's too distracting for me. Anyway, but they will find out. There are a lot of witnesses. There are a lot of phones confiscated, but they need to start an investigation, and I think that's part of the problem. And they really didn't. I mean, right there at the scene of the crime, they didn't. There was also an account from a nurse who wanted to try to help Micah Brown, and the officers wouldn't let her. They didn't even check to see if he was still breathing. They just let him lay there, and she was really upset because she wanted to go to see if she could help him and check his breathing, and they didn't even bother. They just told her no. Yeah. So you know what? This is just the tipping point, and this community, I feel bad. These people are coming in and trying to make it worse.
736-0300 is the number to call. Top story. You're on the air. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to, I was listening to you guys about this thing on Ferguson, and I don't think the police are coming totally clean on this. And I think that's another reason that there's so much problems down there right now. Another thing is I grew up in Chicago, and there's a lot of racism on both sides. It's not just the white cops; it's the blacks and the whites, and there's kind of a deep hatred there, and between both sides. But a lot of racial profiling too down there, and but there's also a thing in Chicago. They call it the wall of silence, where cops get away with it. They're so corrupted they get away with anything, because other cops won't speak up about it.
Oh, heavens. Everybody in Chicago gets away with corruption. It's the most corrupt city in the country, and there's no bones made about it. I think they've got a sign out front as you enter Chicago, the most corrupt city in the country. I don't know. Anyway, how much does it cost to raise a kid nowadays? We'll find out when we come back. 7360300 was the number to call here this morning on Top Story, and wanted to let you know that the folks at Far More of Idaho have what's called the Certiset. No more moving pipe, no more spraying the borders. With Certiset, you can grow and harvest every square inch of your field. You don't have to spray the borders to keep the pipe clear, and no more costly labor to move the pipe. You're going to go in and get that hay crop out. They have this Certiset pipe, which is a flexible pipe, and then they have an attachment on your swather, which lifts it up over the swather's header and then out the back. And you don't have to move the pipe to go in and get your hay. And when you're done, you just turn on the switch again and start watering. You don't have to have the crew come in and get the pipe all set back out again. So ask them about Certiset. I think this is kind of the coming thing in technology for irrigation here in the Magic Valley area, and they know all about it, and they have it at Far More of Idaho at 324-3341, or you can get them online at farmoreofidaho.com. Okay, so for young parents nowadays having children.
Well, you didn't do the biggest announcement. I can't believe as a radio guy. Don Pardo.
Don Pardo.
How did you forget?
I don't know. I'm
what
sorry,
is
Jill. That's why
on?
I have you here to keep me in line.
Wait a second. You were going to talk about Don Pardo.
I was going to talk about him, but I thought, well, I'll just see if you bring it up.
Shiny object, shiny object.
If you're going to do your job and remind me what I'm supposed to talk about.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Well, he was the voice of, and he had that radio voice, Don Pardo.
I know it.
And anyway, he's dead.
Oh, nice.
At the ripe young age.
He had this great voice, and guess what? He's dead, kids.
Well,
my gosh. Way to announce that one.
We got to get to the point here.
Don Pardo's dead. Age 96. He was also the voice of NBC Saturday Night Live, which I'm sure a lot of people remember him for. He had that great... I can't believe as a radio guy. I thought that would have been the first thing out of the chute. Well, he's dead, folks, in case you were wondering.
I've applied for his job, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything back yet.
Probably because of the way you announced that one. Sensitivity of a gnat. So anyway, 96 years old, cut down in his prime.
Yeah,
what a shame.
I don't know. They're doing an investigation to see why he died so young, but at any rate, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know. He's dead.
He's dead.
He
died.
He was great memories. Good life.
He reached his off-ramp on the great freeway of life. So, I don't know.
Terrible. And it keeps getting worse as he's rolling in his grave. All right. Well, anyway, good voice, good times, good man.
That's right. That's right. So how much does it cost to raise a kid nowadays? A middle-income family with a child born in 2013 can expect to spend about $245,340 for food, shelter, and other expenses up to the age of 18. That is an increase of 1.8% from 2012, according to the Agriculture Department. Now, so you have one child, so that's $250,000. You have two children, that's $500,000.
Well, they say it's cheaper with two because you can borrow clothes and you have same bedrooms. Yeah.
You get the group discount with, two or more.
They have less to eat.
That's right.
$13,630 a year.
Wow.
For 18 years, yeah.
That is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The report issued annually by the USDA since 1960 found housing was the single biggest expense, averaging $73,600, or 30% of the total cost of raising a child, followed by child care education at 18%. The remainder went to food, transportation, health care, clothing, and miscellaneous expenses during that same period. Now, of course, in different geographical areas, there is a little difference. A report found geographic variations in the cost of raising a child. They were the highest in the urban Northeast at $282,480.
Those costs are higher, yeah.
Followed by the urban West, $261,330, and the urban Midwest at $240,570, which includes Iowa and South Dakota. And the urban South came in the lowest at $230,610. Child care costs have soared dramatically since the first report 53 years ago. Back then, a middle-income family could have expected to spend $25,230, which is $198,560 in 2013 dollars, to raise a child until the age of 18. Housing was the top cost for parents back then as well. A family with 3 or more children can spend 22% less per child than those with 2 children. So the more you have, the cheaper it is, see?
That's what they say.
A result of kids sharing toys and clothes and parents purchasing food in larger and more economical amounts.
But think about it. That's 22% less than $13,000. It's still a lot of money. So say $2,600 less a child. But still, I mean, I look at people. I mean, my Tom's, family. Some of them have 6, 8 kids. I think, how in God's name would you do that? Seriously,
I know.
How would you do that?
I look back and think, how in the world did I get R3 through?
I know, don't you? Aren't you just amazed?
Yeah, I am. I am amazed at the job that I did.
I'm just speechless.
Okay, my wife helped too.
Thank you.
She worked during those times.
Wasn't Connie there?
She was.
Okay.
She was a full-time teacher, and I did whatever else
I hope she's not listening, or Don Pardo's family's listening to this show.
We have Steve Millington coming up with the Twin Falls Republicans. 7360300 was the number to call here this morning on Top Story, and it's that time.
The Democrats' secular progressive move, political correctness is killing us too. They want to take the money from the hard-working man and give it to the lazy folks that don't give a damn. Democrats and liberals, shame on you. Don't punish us all, just to please a few. You're holding people back while we're picking up the slack, and that's why we can't vote for a Democrat. Oh no! Oh no!
Well, that always means we have Steve Millington with us from the Twin Falls Republicans. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey,
Here we go.
Yeah, before we get into the mudslinging or whatever.
Actually, it is mudslinging this time of year.
You mentioned something about the hit that some of the farmers are taking because of that rain we had. I don't think people realize just the kind of damage that weather like that, like we had a couple of weeks ago with all that rain, can do.
It really was a wonderful rainstorm at exactly the wrong time.
Yeah, my lawn still looks great.
Yeah. The problem with that is we were right on the beginning edge, right at the cusp of the grain harvest. And we always start the grain harvest. Well, we don't always. Typically, the first grain crop is barley, and couldn't get to it. So most of the malting barley in the Magic Valley has been rejected by the contractors. And down in our area, that's Coors is the primary contractor on malt barley. They just refer to it as beer barley, but malt barley.
Yeah.
Because before they could get to it and get it harvested, it had begun to sprout in the head, and they can't take it. They can't use it. So you look at malt contracts were in the, whatever they were. The new price is about half of that. All they can do is sell it now for feed barley. One estimate that I heard was that Twin Falls County suffered, the farmers, the growers in Twin Falls County, suffered about a $12 million loss just on their malt barley contract.
So did they file an economic disaster like Jerome County, or do all the counties surrounding, or do you have to do it individually?
Each county has to do it individually, and I have not read or heard that Twin Falls County has filed a disaster declaration. But I did talk with a couple of people who told me that it was forthcoming, that it would come. It's just a matter of time. Now,
see, I had heard that once a county gets the disaster declaration, then automatically the ones that border it do too. But that might just be for drought.
I think that's drought. In this case, I think each county is going to have to file their own. But it's a huge number. And now it's lingered on and lingered on. We have the same problem now with most of the other grain crops. They're starting to sprout in the head, and they can't get them dry. And if you notice, a lot of the grain growers are now swathing their grain in an attempt to get it dried quicker and faster so that they can avoid this sprouting situation, because there's nowhere to go with it. Yeah. Over in eastern Idaho, the Budweiser contracts are most prevalent from Pocatello north clear to Montana. And Budweiser's doing the same thing. They are rejecting nearly all of their malt barley contracts. So
you wonder where they're going to get it from, because there's been rain all over this country.
We've
been one of the driest areas if you've been watching.
It's really, really going to hurt big time.
We're looking at tens of millions of dollars just in southern Idaho.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's just the malt barley. We haven't started talking about the loss on hay crops that were down. You drive around and you see a windrow hay that's just going black. and now they've got the regular cereal grains, all of the wheat and so forth. Oh, man, this thing has just come at the wrong time.
We got a caller here. Top story, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I just want to make a quick correction according to the numbers that I have received regarding the guest's comment about price differentials. The price differential between malt barley that goes to market, that makes it, and feed barley is much greater. The differential is much greater than 1/2. It can be as much as 1/5.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And the price of feed barley, because of all of this and because of the damage, a lot of the barley that's still in the field is not worth feed. And so that's a total loss.
Yeah.
And I only call because people who live in this valley and who are not farmers or like me connected to farming don't understand the tragedy that is here.
Right.
I listened and talked to I listened in on phone calls. The guy that farms my place was over last week, and we were fortunate. Our barley got in before the rain and met the contract. However, there is agony and tears in hundreds of families in this valley.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a terrible tragedy.
Oh,
and not just to Jerome County, but certainly to Twin Falls County, and I would think also in Cassia and Minidoka and Gooding County. And your point earlier, Kelly, about the economic effect on Jerome and being connected to the counties that surround it, I certainly agree with you. And like I said, I am not a farmer, but I own a farm.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, hey,
boy.
thanks for that information.
Thank you.
And then there's the trickle down,
That's
the
right.
people who work in ag-related businesses and even those who don't. It's all
all going to
connected.
hurt. It's all going to hurt.
7360300 is the number to call. We have Steve Millington with us from the Twin Falls Republicans, and we're gonna get back to the to politics here in just a second. But I just wanted to say that if you haven't stopped by Canyon Pawn yet and visited Dave Hansen and the crew at the newest pawn store in town, then you are missing out on something, because they not only have new and used items, which includes like camping stuff, and they had woodworking stuff. I'm going to have to go in there and see if they've sold any of the woodworking. I mean, they had a table saw and a router, and they had a sliding compound miter saw, and they had the whole works. I mean, you could have bought everything in there, and you could have started being a professional woodworker right there. So I'll have to go see if they still have that.
Too bad Kelly has it all already.
I know. Fishing poles, tools, you name it. It is a great pawn shop, and it is clean and nice, and they also have guns. So stop in there, see what they got. Tell Dave and the crew that we told you to come in. They're on South Shoshone Street, right across from Will's Toyota, right there in the old Vickers Western Store building, right on the corner. Can't miss it.
Okay.
Can't miss it.
All right.
Steve.
And what are their hours? I may need to stop there when I get off the show this morning.
They'll be open.
They'll be good. Excellent.
They're open.
Wonderful.
All right. So what's happening now? The scuffle within the Idaho GOP had kind of simmered down, but now we're seeing some kind of that heating up again here. I guess it's in Region 7, where former congressional candidate Brian Smith is now the party chairman in that area. And
he's what we call the region chairman.
Yeah, there you go. And some of the traditional Republicans are saying, wait a minute, this isn't how we've been doing this, because he's got a speaker coming in for their big fundraiser coming up, instead of the traditional way of allowing the local and the state candidates to give their speeches.
Well, it's also Matt Kibbe. He's president and CEO of Freedom Works, who obviously funded Brian Smith's campaign.
One of the people who put a lot of effort and money into Brian Smith's campaign.
So people are wondering, why bring in this kind of speaker? Especially when Brian lost.
Over the weekend, I was up in the Idaho Falls area, and they had my mistake. I read the editorials from the Post-Register and the articles, and set them aside because we had lots of family things going on up there, and I was going to bring them home with me because I wanted to just archive them, thinking you're going to want to look at these again. So here we are 2 days later, and I really do want to look at those again. The articles up there were a little bit more negative than the printout that they had in the reprint that they had in the Times News, the Twin Falls paper. there is an awful lot of concern and question. Brian Smith is one of the super far right-wing conservative folks, and he's going to try to make a mark with his ideologies on the Region 7. And some of that is good and some of it is not so good. And so they've got this guy coming in. This is a major fundraiser for Region 7 area, and they use it a lot for local candidates to help them in their races and fund campaign expenses. And there's some question, and the article in the Twin Falls paper says that the previous chairman of Region 7, Marcia Bjorn, is having tough time selling tickets to everybody to come.
Right.
And
would that be something you would buy tickets for?
Me personally?
Yeah, you personally as a Republican.
That's a really tricky question. A few years ago, Twin Falls had a very high ticket price and a nationally known speaker come into our Lincoln Day banquet, not our picnic, but our Lincoln Day banquet. And we struggled and struggled and struggled, and we finally just said, no, let's use our elected politicians, officers, and make them come to our Lincoln Day banquet and talk to us. And we vote for them, we elect them. They're supposed to represent our issues. What is their position, and what can we tell them in some one-on-one time before the event, during the social gathering and the luncheon or the dinner, before they get on the podium.
And don't you think this would be odd, because Kibbe was also didn't say the most positive things about Simpson, and Simpson is supposed to be recognized as outstanding Republican elected official of the year.
I mean, this
guy, right? This guy was really campaigning with Brian Smith against Simpson. Is it kind of an odd?
Really, the editorial in the Post Register in Idaho Falls said, I hope, I wish they would allow me to arrange the seating assignments. I would put Mike Simpson between Brian Smith and this Kibbe guy. I can't think of his first name.
Matt
Kibbe. I would put Simpson right between the two of them just to watch the fireworks.
I mean, when you think of it that way, what's the point of this? I mean, really, to bring in someone who funded you to try to beat the current candidate, it just seems so awkward, and he's going to be honored that night too. So that's even really awkward.
The real issue is that what they've done. You remember when you were a kid, Mom always used to tell you not to pick the scab off of your cut or your sliver,
and yet you pick it anyway.
And then it doesn't get better; it gets worse. It gets worse.
It's infected.
Well, I think what they're doing is picking the scabs off of the cut. And I don't see how that's going to be a beneficial thing. And there was one other thing. I attended 2 or 3 little small. They were limited in scope and size, but evidently this guy's the Twin Falls Republican guy. So I had occasion to talk about politics, and normally we consider Eastern Idaho to be absolutely lock solid Republican. We can almost take it to the bank. I didn't get that feeling over the weekend. I really didn't.
How much are tickets? Do you remember?
Nobody. That's the interesting thing. I have not yet seen a ticket price.
Oh, when's the event again? It's coming up, right?
It's the 28th of August. That's a Thursday night. We've got better deals going on the 28th. Don't anybody jump in your car and drive to Idaho Falls. We've got a better deal for you right here in Twin Falls.
What is it?
In Twin Falls. We are going to have, on the night of the 28th, Mr. Brad Little will be participating in the Republican booth at the Twin Falls County Fair.
Wow.
So you don't need to go up that. You just come right here. We've got Brad Little, and we'll have...
So it sounds to me like the Republican skerfuffle in the state is still
not
there.
Not quite over.
Yeah.
Oh, and are you surprised? I didn't think so. When you have 2 strong factions like that, how are you, this is what's going to happen. You're just going to butt heads.
But the majority of those in that area must have voted for Brian Smith. So, I mean, that's kind of going the way they want, I guess.
Let's go back and how did Brian Smith get to be the chairman of Region 7?
Yeah, I'm not sure how.
Okay, every county, the counties participating in Region 7, and I can't tell you which ones they are. It's going to be Bonneville and Teton and Clark and Madison and Fremont and Butte and Camet, I don't know, over in that far east, northeast area of Idaho. The county chairman and the state committee man, committee woman, and committee youth are also members of the region, and they meet and select the representative.
Oh, so it was just by 3 or 4 people.
It's just like 3 or 4 people from each county get together, and they select the region chairman. So it's probably not completely representative of all of the, quote, precinct committee persons or the voters in general. And so it's a limited delegation of people who vote and select a region chairman.
736-0300, top story. You're on the air with Steve Millington.
Good morning.
I think a lot of these parties that have these inner fights get over them. I think that, if you go back about 6 years, you might remember there was kind of a huge huff in the Democratic Party. I don't know if you guys remember.
Idaho?
No. I'm talking nationwide.
Over
remember
what?
Obama and Hillary didn't get along very well.
Well, it's the primaries.
I don't think
look at the primaries.
Well, that's what you're talking about right now. Is you're talking about a primary, between.
But then they came together.
Yeah, well, and you don't think that
hey,
I don't.
Don't you know by now if the Democrats do it, it's okay. If the Republicans don't do it, it's all messed up.
Hey, it doesn't matter to me. You guys can fight all you want, but do you really see this coming together? I mean, that's the thing. You have 2 strong factions. Are they coming together?
I think they're going to come together. I think it's just like at our picnic last week. Steve Yates was here, and he said, the first thing we have to do is to elect Republican candidates, and we need to come together. We need to get all of our resources and our campaigning and our word of mouth and support Republican candidates for elected office, and that's got to happen between now and the 3rd of November. I think the date is 4th is election day, if I remember right. So we've got 90 days. We don't have that, do we? We have October and September. We've got 75 days is all we have left. Yeah. Maybe not quite that many. And so now we're getting to the point of real earnest campaign effort. And we have, if we're going to elect Republicans, we better all get on the same wagon.
So what's your opinion now of Steve Yates now that you've had a few weeks?
He was here at our picnic on last Wednesday night, and he is very, very smooth and very polished. What would you expect from somebody who had that kind of training from the
in Washington for
elite?
25 years? Yeah,
and so he is very, very polished and very smooth, and he has a very skilled ability to look at the situation and say, we're going to have to emphasize this, and we're going to do this, and like any good bureaucrat in Washington-based bureaucrat, most of the work is done away from the spotlight, where you gather the groups together and you just say, you need to bury the hatchet here, get beyond this issue. We have a bigger battle to fight.
What's his opinion of what's going on in Region 7?
According to the article in the Twin Falls paper, and even what I read in the Idaho Falls newspaper, he was taking a sideline approach. He's just reviewing and consulting and trying to understand the situation better.
But when you say you have to get over this issue, it's not really an issue. It's ideological.
It's ideological.
And so you don't just get over your ideological positions. I mean, clearly we see this all the time. You and I aren't just going to drop our ideological positions. It would be
it's
wonderful.
Hard
to say to 2 groups and Jill, say, just drop it.
It would be wonderful if you would drop your ideological position.
Are you kidding me?
That's succeed. Now, there's
if I ever do, the warning, I've lost my mind. Okay,
well,
I've lost my mind. If I became a Republican, something.
No,
seriously had to be wrong with me.
I didn't say you had to become a Republican.
Really?
I just said you had to drop some of your ideological positions.
Oh, no, you didn't say some of. You said drop. So anyway, hey, before we run out of time, I wanted to ask you, this is the craziest thing going on with Ron Crane and Deb Silver. I talked to Deb Silver, and I asked her, how did this come about? If people don't remember, he supposedly challenged her to a debate on radio station KIDO in Boise, and then never showed. And I called her. I said, what is the background to this? This is weird. She said she was traveling in Lewiston. Melissa Davlin from PBS called her about the real debate and then said, hey, Ron Crane called you out on a TV show appearance that he was on saying that he's challenging you to a debate and that she had until Friday to respond. And she's like, oh. And then someone sent her a tweet that came from his PR firm saying, again, they're challenging her to a debate. She has till Friday to respond. And then they have hashtag Dems dodging, ? Like she's dodging this debate. So she said Thursday night she was in Boise. So she said, fine. So Friday she went to the radio station. Wouldn't you? Does that not? So, because he said what radio station and everything. So she gets there and the producers, they hadn't heard of it. Now, how weird is this?
That's one of those.
What is that? Just a game? Is that a game? And then you say and then they don't respond?
I don't know anything about his this call out here for Deborah Silver at KIDO radio.
Yeah.
But when Crane was here last Wednesday night, I told him, I said, you better be there, you better show up, and you better be prepared to debate anytime, every time from now until November the 3rd. You just don't have a choice. And he said, I will be to everyone that is prepared. And I said, what about the PBS debate?
Yeah.
That's the big one. And he said, it is on. He gave me the date, and he said, I will be there. There's another one, and I can't tell you.
Yeah, there's supposed to be two, but.
He said there was a second one, and I'm sorry. The one that I keyed on was the PBS debate because that's really the big.
The other one is a KTVB debate.
I think that's correct, Kelly.
But how odd is that about the radio one?
When I read this morning, I thought, oh man, I don't know anything about that one.
Well, we're out of time. Thanks, Steve.
Maybe
we'll
it's a good thing this morning.
Yeah, we got Grant Loebs coming up next hour. All right, here we are. It's already started, folks. Welcome back to Top
gracious.
Story.
Did I get my theme song today?
As a matter of fact,
we don't have time.
With all the
he's
no,
on half
we do
tilt
have time.
here.
If you don't have it together, we can skip it.
No, Kelly's got it.
No, that's okay. I've got it here. I know it's here somewhere. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Twin Falls County Prosecutor Grant Loebs, our guest this morning here on Top Story.
Hello, good to be here.
And we've got some stuff to talk about, but since you are well entrenched in the Republican Party in Twin Falls County, it's always good to get your views of what's going on. And we talked with Steve Millington about the situation in eastern Idaho with Brian Smith having Matt Kibbe come in to speak instead of allowing the local candidates to speak. And so what do you – it appears as though the election of Steve Yates was not the end-all to the Republican issues in the state.
No, I think that nobody thought it would be. It was an important, thing to get out of the way because the party needs to have a chairman to speak for it, and as we talked about before, to move forward with fundraising and distribution of the funds that have already been raised and electing candidates in November. But clearly, the fight within the Republican Party and more importantly, the fight to take over the Republican Party from without is not going to end with an election of a chairman. And that's what you see going on in Idaho Falls and with the Region 7 picnic controversy. And, I don't expect it to stop anytime soon. The Libertarians mainly are looking for a place to be. The Libertarians have been losing at the polls for, 30 years. They've never won anything, and they don't have any particular support in the public other than with a fairly small fringe, and so they're looking for something to do. And this guy, Matt Kibbe, who's the chairman of Freedom Works, which is a significant libertarian spokesman organization, has actually laid it out pretty specifically what he believes is going on. I'm quoting from an article that was recently, well, this is from April 29th, a statement that Mr. Kibbe made. He said, there's increasingly common ground between libertarians and progressives in the Democratic Party on issues such as surveillance and privacy. But I think small government activists have a better shot at infiltrating the GOP. The biggest window for libertarians is not to create a third party, but actually take over the Republican Party. That's what's going on.
Well,
anybody who's been watching
that.
this has seen this for the past 10 years.
Right.
The Libertarians made a specific, calculated decision to abandon the Libertarian Party. By and large, they still have a convention, and they still have some people that stick with the Libertarian Party, and I appreciate that. They have a position. They've staked it out. I have here the Libertarian Party platform. It's very unique, very different from either the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. And there are libertarians who still support this. But there are a lot of them who've decided it's not going anywhere. Let's hijack something that is. That's what's going on, and that's what's going on in Region 7. And Matt Kibbe is a nationally renowned spokesman. He's an intelligent guy. I've watched him many times on TV. He's just not a Republican is all.
So how do you, Steve said, we have to, come together. And Steve Yates said, we have to, bring our ideas together. I mean, these are ideological differences. I don't know how you could, it'd be like saying Republicans and Democrats, work it out for the same cause.
This is like the Ukrainians and the Russians coming together.
Right.
There's no coming together.
Right,
one group's
exactly.
trying to take over the other.
So how do you think this is going to play out?
I think that given the very small number of libertarians who are trying to take over the Republican Party and who are infiltrating these meetings, that it's essentially a non-issue. These are very outspoken but very small group. I mean, if you want to know how small, look at Brian Smith's election. He ran in the most conservative part of the world, and he got himself 30-some% of the vote in the Republican primary.
And he had a lot of money behind him. Freedom Works.
Absolutely thrashed.
Yeah.
And he was thrashed everywhere. He was thrashed in Idaho Falls. He was thrashed in Twin Falls. He was thrashed in Pocatello. And that's fine. The politics is a marketplace for ideas. He put his ideas out there. He got slaughtered. And now he is engineering some kind of payback here by having this guy who supported him to the tune of lots of money and lots of hostility against Simpson, who was, of course, nominated overwhelmingly. And he's having this guy be the speaker at the same banquet where Simpson's getting his outstanding elected official.
That'll
award.
Be awkward.
It's not
Who
complex.
do you sit next to?
Yeah.
Is that not weird?
This is not a sophisticated or difficult to understand phenomenon. And
are you surprised he was chosen as Region 7 chairperson?
Not at all.
Why? Were they all Tea Party people?
Well, first of all, he's a big name. I mean, he was just the nominee or running for the nomination. He is a hard worker. He has lots of support among the Libertarians and the Tea Party folks. And so he has the support of a handful of people who make this decision. It's a very small group of people who make the decision about who is the Region 7 chairman. I mean, we do the same thing here. There are about 12 people, maybe 15 at a meeting. And my understanding from talking to people at that meeting, he won by one vote. And, that's fine. He therefore gets to be the Region 7 chairman. But the point of that chairmanship is to support Republican candidates, Republican Party ideals, and elect Republicans. And, he's chosen to do something different.
736-0300, top story. You're on the air with Grant Loebs.
Grant Lowe, I just want to say that I am a proud Tea Party member, but I am not a liberal. I'm not a
Libertarian?
Libertarian, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Libertarians are anti-government. They want to cut the government clear down to nothing, take down the stop signs and everything. And, we got to have some rules. We got to have some government.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, the Republican Party and the Tea Party are not at odds with one another. The Tea Party is, by and large, a movement within the Republican Party to make the Republican Party more conservative on a lot of issues, mainly financial issues, but some others as well. I don't want anybody out there to misunderstand that my comments are anti-Tea Party necessarily. They're anti-libertarians taking over the Republican Party, and that is by and large what this the movement is that you read about in the paper. The Tea Party and the Republican Party in Twin Falls, which is, of course, what I'm most familiar with, have coexisted and worked together and melded into one unit quite well. And some of the people that have been advocating or agitating against the quote old guard Republicans are not Tea Party people. They're by and large libertarians. I mean, as I've said on this show before, the single biggest mover in the Ada County area, for instance, is the former chairman of the Libertarian Party. He's the quote ultra-conservative Republican faction. Well, he's not conservative. He's not Republican. The same thing is true in Twin Falls, where the main mover for this antagonistic group is the former chairman of the Constitution Party. They're not Republicans. And I welcome them to the Republican Party if they want to be Republicans, but I don't welcome them if they want to do what Matt Kibbe wants them to do, which is take over the Republican Party for the Libertarians. And so Tea Party people, absolutely welcome, in my view. People who are advocating for another party, I think not welcome. And I welcome any Democrat who wants to change to a Republican. No problem there. That's always been the way our government and our politics has worked. People change points of view. But to say I'm still a libertarian and I want to take over a party, that's a different matter.
Right.
So what's going to happen here? Is this finally going to go away, or is this something that's going to be just kind of a thorn in the side for a long time?
Oh, I think it'll go away, as it did in Twin Falls, as it did in Ada County, as it did in Bannock County. Once actual Republican voters wake up to what's going on, they'll throw out the people who aren't Republicans, and the Republican Party will continue to be in Idaho a very conservative, very active, and my guess is for at least a while the dominant party in Idaho. But success breeds problems sometimes, and
yeah, you guys have been so successful.
Well, the local guy in Twin Falls attended some of the Democrat meetings before he decided to take over the Republican Party, and that's because he thought, what's the point of taking over the Democrats? At the moment, they're too small to matter. And that's
Let's take over the big guy. It's almost like a coup.
It's strategically a good idea. It's just not something that actual Republicans should support.
And that's what's happening in Washington as well. So it's
and they're having almost no success there either.
Right.
736-0300, top story. You're on the air with Grant Loebs.
Yeah, how are you this morning?
Good.
Great. How are you?
I hear a lot about the Tea Party. The T stands for taxed enough already. People need to understand this isn't a wacko group. The national press and the liberal press, they want to make it sound like, they're all crazies. The Tea Party people are nuts, extremists, right wing. It's people that care about their country, and I agree. The real extreme ones that are libertarians, let them go and do what they want to do. But you got to understand, when you hear all this on the news and stuff like the national news, you've got to understand what kind of press we have in this country today, and their agenda. They have an agenda, so they want to make Republicans all right-wing wacko crazies, and they want us make us sound like, we just have no idea what's going on, when, physically conservative people are the kind of people that's going to get this country back where it needs to be, not wild, crazy, taxing, spending liberals. So I think that's something we need to remember. Thank you.
All right, thanks for the call.
I agree with the caller. The fact that the Tea Party is being, attacked by the media is not. That doesn't bother me. The Tea Party being attacked by the media is, in some ways, a sign that the Tea Party is doing something right. But we should not continue to confuse the Tea Party with what's going on, like in Region 7, and what's going on with the chairmanship in this state, and what's going on with Matt Kibbe coming to speak. That's a different issue. Tea Party, my position is Tea Party, welcome aboard. We need all the help we can get. They're generally made of conservative Republicans. Libertarians, constitutionalists, my invitation to them is go back to your party and try to make it work. You believe different things than Republicans do.
Yeah.
Right, they do.
Twin Falls County Prosecutor Grant Loebs is with us here this morning on Top Story. Next segment, we're going to get into some legal stuff, including the indictment of Texas Governor Rick Perry, right here on Top Story. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Welcome back. And yesterday's $100 instant winning name is Jay Wright.
Jay Wright. How do you spell right, just in case?
W-R-I-G-H-T.
Right.
Did I kind of sound like Don Pardo there?
Sort of.
Jay Wright.
It's a shame because he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. And your $100 word of the day for today is cable.
Cable.
C-A-B-L-E.
Cable.
Go to our website at newsradio1310.com, click on Word of the Day, type in cable, and listen tomorrow. And if you hear your name tomorrow and you played the word today, you win $100, just like that. Twin Falls County Prosecutor Grant Loebs is our guest this morning here on Top Story. Interesting situation came up in the great state of Texas where the governor has been indicted for cutting off the money for... what was the...
No, it was abuse of power and coercion of a public servant.
Right.
Those were the charges.
Because he cut off some money to a drunk and drinking individual.
Well, there's more to it than that, but go on.
Okay, all right. Well,
he cut off funding for the Public Integrity Unit, $7.5 million.
That's what it was, Public Integrity Unit. So is that kosher?
Well, which part? The part where the head of the Public Integrity Unit, who was a prosecuting attorney, was arrested for drunk driving, that's not very kosher. The part where he was indicted for using his veto, that's not very kosher. The part where he vetoes the funding for an agency because the person heading it up lacks, quote, public integrity, that's what elected officials do. That's what governors do.
That's what I thought.
Governors use their vetoes to influence public policy. That's the whole point of the veto. The veto is designed to do that. And the interesting thing is the overwhelming number of people on all sides of the political spectrum, Democrats, liberals, Republicans, conservatives, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, nobody thinks that this indictment is a legitimate thing.
I don't know, because what I've read, they said that they think there's more to it because the Public Integrity Unit had been investigating his pet project, the Cancer Research and Prevention Institute, where $3 billion of taxpayer-funded money was awarded to research, which basically went to the people that Perry wanted, and it was such a bad... I guess there was such a problem that the entire scientific review team, including the Nobel laureate scientists, resigned because they said millions were handed out through political favoritism.
Keep in mind, he didn't veto the funding for that agency because of that. In fact, had the drunk prosecuting attorney who ran the Public Integrity Unit resigned, he would have not cut the funding.
Well, it was
specifically tied to the fact that the Public Integrity Unit was run by a person who was sworn to uphold the law, who was violating the law, who was clearly drunk, and
served her time, and it was a misdemeanor.
The agency, and he said, you got to go, and if you're going to continue to run it, we're going to veto the funding.
But he also had two district attorneys that were had DUIs that he didn't say a word about. So I think there was more to it.
Were they running agencies?
Let me see. I'm not sure.
It's not a matter of it's not up to him to remove district attorneys who are guilty of malfeasance. He doesn't have the authority to do that.
I don't think he had the authority in this either, though.
Well, that's what vetoes are for.
But I don't think he could veto the funding for this because he also at one point. But yeah, I know, which is part of the problem, part of the lawsuit.
So somebody's just upset they filed the indictment against him because they differ with his reasoning for doing that.
We'll wait to see how this plays out, and nobody obviously in this room has all the details. But what it looks like, of course, is just your standard Texas political infighting where they use the power of government against somebody, and there's no more powerful use of government, more harmful use of government power than to indict people based on political differences. And that's clearly what it looks like here. And the Washington Post, the New York Times are not generally considered to be wild right-wing establishments, and
But it was a Republican judge and a Republican other people. It was not. I don't think there were any Democrats involved with this.
Judges don't have anything to do with indictments.
But they were appointed by George Bush on the grand jury.
The person who did the indictment was a Democrat. The judge has nothing whatsoever to do with an indictment because judges don't have anything to do with
indictments. Were they not over the grand jury?
No, judges have nothing to do with grand juries.
Nothing, okay.
Prosecutors form grand juries. Prosecutors bring indictments. The prosecutor in this case was a Democrat. Now, I don't know this person, so I don't want to attack the integrity of the person. I don't know. I'm just saying it clearly looks like a bizarre use of criminal charging to charge a governor for using a veto.
I think there's more to it than this. I really do. I really do.
I'll bet there is, and I'll bet it is increasingly unsavory the more we find out.
It is Texas.
After all,
it is Texas. Sorry, I lived there for 6 years. If you want to talk unsavory, go to Texas.
We're going to talk about what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri, and we come back. Twin Falls County Prosecutor Grant Loebs here on Top Story. 736-0300, the number to call here this morning on Top Story. And just wanted to let you know, in case you're thinking about one of those low and honey loaders for your feedlot or dairy operation. Now, if you just, have a little place out in the country and you got 3 or 4 steers or something that you let graze on your 2 acres of grass every year, you probably are not in need of a low and honey loader. But if you have a large livestock operation, then you probably are. And if you need to get rid of this manure, move it from point A to point B in a safe way, you need to get a hold of Pat Hartzell from Stanley & Company. He can set you up. He can sell you one of these, or he can set you up to where you can see one of these in operation. And his number is 280-1167. That's 280-1167. That's Pat Hartzell with Stanley & Company, and he can fix you up. 736-0300 is the number to call. Top Story. You're on the air with Grant Loebs. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to, anyone and I encourage Jill and anyone else has questions on this Harry case in Texas, to go to YouTube and observe this prosecuting attorney in charge of ethics in government as she attempts to use her office and her power to abuse and threaten public employees if they don't give her a break on her drunken driving.
That stuff's all over Facebook today too. I know they've had some pictures of how she acted in the holding room and such. So.
Well, I mean, when you're under the influence, you don't have the best reason either, right? That's usually why they're arrested.
It's all the alcohol's fault. It's not her fault for drinking.
Well,
it's the
I'm saying
she
served 45 days, and you know what? There's more to this story, and so we'll find out what happens.
The caller has a good point, though. There's nothing more despicable than a person in whom public trust is vested, who abuses that public trust for their own personal gain. And really, from my point of view, a prosecutor who says, you can't touch me, I'm a prosecutor, or a policeman who says, do you know I'm a cop, you can't give me a ticket, you can't arrest me. Those are despicable things for people in those positions to do. And, you can say, well, she was drunk, but, she shouldn't be drunk.
Right. And
she should know more than anybody that a person in that kind of public job has to be careful. I mean, if you are in that kind of job and you go out and you have 3 or 4 beers or 3 or 4 drinks, you call a cab, you have somebody give you a ride home. And when you don't, and then you get caught, and then you say, do you know who I am? I'm going to get you if you don't let me loose. You're compounding the problem.
We have all kinds of riots, of course, going on in Ferguson, Missouri. There's been all kinds of stories come out of that area. Just the latest is a Getty photographer has been arrested for not getting out of the way quick enough, apparently, and apparently not staying in the area reserved for the media. I remember this happened in Nevada, too, down there on the Clive Bundy Ranch. A lot of people were being arrested because there was what they called the First Amendment zone where they had to be. What are the rules that are governing media? Can they, in a situation like is going on in Ferguson, Missouri right now, I mean, can they literally command the media or anybody else without declaring martial law? Do they have to declare martial law? Or how much power do they really have when stuff like this is going on? They went into a McDonald's, they kicked people out, told the McDonald's store they were going to close. I mean, this seems
His
like
First Amendment only in certain spots.
Yeah.
Well, implicit in your statement is the belief that the media has more rights than average people.
Right, and I don't mean to make it sound like that.
Well, and we have to keep in mind they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, the media has no more right to be at the front of the line or in a specific place where they get a good view than you do.
Right.
I mean, if you're not wearing your media hat. The media cannot be prevented from doing their job, but they don't get any special access to do that job that an average person doesn't do. So with regard to the McDonald's thing, I mean, I saw the videos of that. Obviously, like all the things we talk about on this show, we don't know the full story, but that looked a little extreme to me. And that gets to a question
and they were arrested.
Well, yes, and you can be arrested if you are at a police crime scene, or if you're at a riot scene, or if you're in a place where there is an emergency and you don't do what the emergency people tell you to do. I mean, they can tell the public, stand behind this line, you have to be behind the tape, you have to stay over there, it's not safe over here. I mean, they have the ability to control that scene, and they have the ability to tell the media to stand behind the same line that they tell average people to stand behind. The difference, of course, is in a practical sense, if you are overbearing to the media, they will get it on tape and they will show it and people will see it. So that is a little bit of a warning to law enforcement officers to be rational and be careful when you're making these decisions.
What about stopping them from filming?
I don't know if the guy in McDonald's was doing anything that you and I couldn't do if we were sitting in a McDonald's. Now, if they'd roped off the McDonald's and said it's in danger of being engulfed by looters and rioters, we're clearing it out, and the media guy refuses to leave, well, then he can be made to leave like anyone else.
We'll be right back with Grant Loebs. 7360300 is the number to call here this morning on Top Story. Twin Falls County Prosecutor Grant Loebs. If you have any questions or comments, this would be a good time to call. One of the other things I think it's concerning a lot of people is the apparent militarization of the police departments. And I think this has been going on for a long time. We've had the SWAT teams and stuff, and everybody seemed to accept the SWAT teams. They sent the SWAT team in when things really got tough, and the bad guys had really big and bad weapons. And then they had the bank robbery in California here a while back, a few years ago, where they were the bad guys just totally outgunned and outarmed the police department. And ever since then, it seems like there's been a move to kind of militarize the police, but now it seems like they're going a little too far, and they show up once in a while for somebody who's broken parole or something, and gosh, they've got the SWAT team out there, they got the MRAP vehicle. That is a show of concern for a lot of people, I think. Is that?
Well, I think that's true. I think that what people see, and again, we're seeing little snippets here. We're seeing specific examples that appear to be extreme. But when people see the police armed the way the military is armed, that causes them some concern. But the problem is, of course, and your citing of the bank robbery a few years ago in California is important, that the police cannot afford to be outgunned by criminals. Now, that means that they have to enhance their capabilities. They have to have better armor. They have to have, for certain occasions, for certain events, bulletproof vehicles, and all of that. But it's incumbent upon each police agency and each sheriff's department and, the federal law enforcement as well to use those enhanced tools and enhanced tactics sparingly and carefully. I mean, you don't show up to, any old run-of-the-mill crime scene with your, quasi-military equipment. And the criticisms are usually where it appears that they've overreacted. Now, this thing in Ferguson, I'm looking, people can't see because I'm on the radio here, but behind Kelly is a television where they've been playing the videotapes from the most recent insanity there. I mean, something more than a policeman with a baton and a taser is needed for that kind of crisis. And it's, of course, the police who have to be above reproach and have to be careful and have to make sure that when they use that kind of force, they do it appropriately and responsibly. And, there is a little bit more danger that something will get out of hand when you have more weapons and more sophisticated and powerful weapons. But, the police know when they go into a situation like that they're going to be the targets. And it's very important for not only officer safety, but for community safety, that the police not be overrun by people who are violent and better armed.
736-0300, top story. You're on the air with Grant Loebs.
Hey, good morning. Grant, I apologize. I want to step back to an earlier discussion topic. I couldn't get in on time to be there at right time. When you were discussing the indictment of Governor Perry, I had just read a column written by Lanny Davis, who is a well-known attorney headquartered in Washington, D.C. He's politically very active with the Democratic Party, and he is an advisor to Mrs. Clinton. And in his column, his comment, it was entitled, "Democrats Must Denounce Rick Perry's Indictment." And just one of the quotes that he makes is that the double standard cannot be tolerated. McCarthyism is McCarthyism. Accusation and innuendo and investigations used as surrogates for facts and truths and due process, whether by the right or by the left. Right? And that's what he's calling this. Mm-hmm. And he uses, it was a very interesting column because he goes back to the President Clinton's time and the number of investigations that occurred then, and the fact that the Democrats denounced most of those. And we know now by history that most all of those ended with no one going to jail, no one really receiving any kind of fine or punishment. And he says, in his estimation, that's what this is.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, I mean, the Democrats, conservatives, Republicans, liberals, all over the spectrum, people are opposed to this kind of use of the criminal justice system. And I think it's going to end badly for the people that chose to use indictment and the criminal process this way. And Lanny Davis, you could not find a more liberal, more ardent Democrat than Lanny Davis. And, I watch him when he's on TV, and, I often disagree with his political views, but he makes sense. He's not a fool. He's a well-respected, intelligent guy. And it doesn't surprise me. I had not seen that article, but it doesn't surprise me that he would take that position.
All right, we'll follow that and see what happens.
I think the grand jury must have had something, and they think that,
grand jury has what the prosecutor gave him.
Well,
that's exactly what they have.
And if that's one-sided, then that's what happens.
Would Perry offer a new job?
You just don't like Rick Perry. That's all.
I think there's more. No, I think there's more to it, and I don't think it's political.
Grant Loebs, thank you. We're out of time. We'll see you next week.
Thanks a lot.
You can hear the Huckabee Report each weekday at this time, brought to you exclusively by Waddell & Reed. Laura Nelson, Josh Funk, and Steve Stanger are the financial advisors, and the number is 736-6563. Well, Jill, I'm ready for lunch.
I know. I am too. We have one Friday.
We do.
Well, Grant, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Grant.
Always
Appreciate
interesting.
It. Yeah, we'll see you next month. All right. He's you can see him on video.
I'm out of here.
He's out of here.
Peace out.
Have a good week.
Yeah,
right,
you too.
Grant.
Bye.
So if you would like to sign up for a chance to win a lunch with Kelly and Jill at the Canyon Crest Dining and Event Center, you go to our website at newsradio1310.com and click on Win Lunch with Kelly and Jill, fill in the information, and then wait to see if your name is called.
That's right.
And
that's how easy that is.
That's how easy that is.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like winning $100 in the word of the day. So
that's right.
Absolutely. So, hey, how was last night with Gracie?
Gracie didn't meow last night, but I woke up really early. So.
Oh, that's right. Does she normally
she meows
meow
through the night
before you got up this morning?
I don't even know anymore. She's it was okay last night, but I woke up at 3:08, then I couldn't go back to sleep till 3:30. Then I had to wake up.
She didn't wake you up at 3:08.
No, I just woke up.
So you say you went back to sleep at 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know?
Because I looked at the clock. I couldn't go back to sleep till 3:30. That was the last time I looked at the clock.
Oh, okay.
And then you wake up and you wake up and you wake up because you have to wake up at earlier, and then it was just a terrible night's rest.
I'm sorry.
So if it's not my cat, it's Rise and Shine. There's always something.
Well, sometimes when you have to get up earlier than normal, you don't sleep well because you're afraid that you're going to oversleep the alarm or something.
I would just like one day to just have a sleep in and no one bother me.
I have two
just
alarms.
Till 7.
I have a battery-powered alarm clock, and then I have my smartphone with the second alarm.
Well, you know what? Someone just told me this because when I woke up the other night with the text, I guess you can turn it to silent, but your clock alarm still goes off, which I was worried about.
Yeah, I think that's probably
I didn't know
true.
that, and that's why that text at 12:30 woke me up.
Oh, I see.
Because I'm like, how can I use my phone for an alarm but turn off the volume?
Well, they're smartphones. They are smart enough to know that.
They should give you a little information thing with it.
I think they do, but nobody reads it.
It's online, and it's 100 pages or whatever.
It's that 49-page packet that comes with it that's in print so small you can't even read it. And the first 20 pages are about safety. So I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Hey, tomorrow is Wednesday. We got the State of the City. What else do we have tomorrow, Jill? Are you looking at the calendar?
Magic Valley Speedway.
Oh, that's right. Ashley Houle will be in.
Yes.
And we'll find out about the races coming up this weekend. So a lot of stuff going on, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Goodbye, Jill.
Bye, Cal.